Hello and welcome to our video on finding money for college financially basics. My name is Raul Hinojosa and I am the Director of Community Engagement at the University of Texas at Dallas. And I'm excited to join you today to share a little bit more about the different kinds of financial aid programs that exist and give you a really quick introduction into how to apply for financial aid. This is part of a two-part series where we'll be talking today about the sort of basics about financial aid. And then our next part, or our second part of our series, is focused on how to fill out the FAFSA application, which is the financial aid application. We'll take you step by step how to do that process. So make sure you check out both parts of the videos to help you through this process. Let's get started. So we always hear that there are a couple of myths from families. So I hear things like, my parents make too much money, so I'll never get any help. Only people with perfect GPAs get scholarships, or you can only get financial aid if you pay someone to help you find it. And the reality is that there's financial aid available for everyone, and it comes in all shapes and sizes, or we should call all different kinds of forms. We'll talk about the different kinds of financial aid. Most people like free money, right? Most people like free money, but there are all kinds of aid programs, including sometimes students get loans. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. You should never ever pay anyone for help either. So there are some companies that have gotten pretty slick out there to ask families to pay money, and they guarantee that they'll fill out their financial aid forms or that they'll find them scholarships. Almost always, those are taking advantage of people. The information I'm providing for you today is free. Colleges and universities are happy to help you with your questions and to navigate these processes. The Department of Education and the federal government as also provides help. And at your student's high school, there's lots of people who are willing to help you for free. So you should never really pay anybody for this kind of information. Oftentimes it's a scam. So before we start talking specifically about like financial aid programs and what forms to fill out, I always like to start here where we talk about what are things you can do to just get ahead in college that may save you money in the long run. So if you're a senior, some of these things may be too late, but if you have a son or daughter who's a junior or someone who's in middle school, thinking ahead, like taking college credit courses in high school is a great way to save money. If you're earning college credit while you're in high school, it's usually free or is at a reduced price. And so the more credits you earn there, oftentimes that can be a great way to get a head start and to save tuition later. Students should also take the AP exam. There's a college level equivalent called a CLEP exam that students can also take when they graduate high school and go off to college. But basically the AP or the CLEP exams are opportunities for students to test out of certain college classes. And when you test out of it, you get college credit if you get a certain score. And then you don't have to pay tuition for that. So it's another way to save money. When students get to college, they should also choose their college classes wisely. Not taking classes they don't need, working closely with an advisor to make sure they're following their degree plan very closely. If they're transferring from a community college to a university, that they coordinate between the college and the university to take classes that will count towards their degree plan. Just a little bit of smart college planning can help students avoid spending extra money on tuition and taking extra time before they graduate from college. Students should also consider starting at a community college. For some students, this is the best economic option for them. So they can start at a community college, take their basics the first 2 years, their university core curriculum, and then transfer over to the university once they're ready to start their major classes. Community colleges are supported by local tax dollars from your county. And so usually if you live within that county, you can get a really good price for classes that many will be accepted to the university. And so this is another option for some students. All right, so let's get into the meat of our presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the different types of financial aid that exist first. So there are three types of federal student aid. There are grants, which are usually offered to students based on financial need and do not have to be repaid. The largest grant program in the United States is the Pell Grant program. Besides federal grants, there are also state grant programs that are offered based on financial need as well. In Texas, the largest grant program that we have is the Texas Grant Program, and that's the state financial aid program. There's borrowed money that students can receive. Loans are the primary borrowed money source. These loans are investment in the student's future. But they do have to be repaid, and they're offered to every student who applies. So this is one type of aid that's open to all students, regardless of your economic situation. These loans are really different from private loans, so it's really important to know this. By law, the interest rate cannot go over 8%. Last I checked, they're hovering around 6%. The repayment terms are different for these loans. So students who receive some kind of direct loan from the government for education do not have to begin repaying those loans until they graduate from college or if they stop attending college. Students will have a 6-month grace period before they have to begin repayment. And the repayment terms automatically are 10 years, so they have 10 years to pay it back. There are extended repayment plans that can go further than that, but students will get some loan counseling to make sure that they choose the plan that makes the most sense for them. There are also earned money programs like the work study program. So students who have work study get a job and they typically will work on campus no more than 20 hours. Oftentimes it's more like 12 to 15 hours. They'll work on campus and they'll get a paycheck. That paycheck they can use for their educational expenses. So they can use it to pay tuition and fees, supplies, books, parking, gas, housing, meal plans, any of those expenses they can pay them, or other living expenses that they may have to pay while they're in college. So getting a work study job is a great way to help pay for some of your expenses, but in exchange for that, you have to work and do some kind of a job, usually on campus. So to apply for these 3 programs, students are going to fill out an application for financial aid. If students are US citizens or permanent residents, they're going to fill out the FAFSA application, which is the free application for federal student aid. If a student is undocumented or has DACA, the state of Texas has a law that allows these students to qualify for state financial aid, and they'll fill out an application called the TASFA with a T, the Texas Application for State Financial Aid. Regardless of what application you fill out, the students will need this information to complete their FAFSA. They'll need to get their social security number, if they have one, if they're a US citizen or permanent resident. They'll have to get information for their federal tax returns. Students who are doing the 2021-22 application will need income tax returns from 2019. We'll need information about the student's tax return and the parent's tax return. Um, Students should also get any records of untaxed income, cash, savings, and checking account balances, as well as information about investments. Students can always go online and start their application, and if they need to stop to gather some additional data to input into the application, they can always save their application and come back to it to finish it once they get the information they need. One of the important first steps is to sign up to get an FSA ID. The FSA ID is basically a username and password in the Department of Education student aid system that allows students and parents to sign electronically their financial aid application. It's a pretty simple process that you go in, you fill in a preliminary application, you put some information, and then usually right away, instantly, your application, your FSA ID is activated and ready to be used on your FAFSA application. To do that, you go to the website fsaid.ed.gov to do your FSA ID. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that depending on the student's residency situation, they'll fill out one of the following applications. US citizens and permanent residents will fill out the FAFSA with an F, and students who are undocumented or have DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, will fill out the TASFA, or the Texas Application for State Financial Aid. The FAFSA is available online at fafsa.gov, and the TASFA is available online at collegeforalltexans.com. Those are the two places where you can go and fill out the application that corresponds with your residency situation. So every year, there are always two applications active at any given time. So right now, the 2020 and 2021 application is available, and that is for college students who are currently enrolled in university or colleges. The students who are in high school right now that are seniors that will be graduating will begin college in fall 2021. They need to complete the 2021-2022 year application. So when you go in to do the FAFSA, it's really important that you pick the correct aid year. Every year I have students who tell me, whoops, I finished the application, but I realized I did the wrong year. So just make sure you choose the right one. If you're in high school now, you're gonna do the 2021-2022 application if you're a senior. If you're a junior, sophomore, or freshman, you do not do an application yet. You have to wait till your senior year. So don't get started on the process until you get to your senior year. The application is always available October 1st of your senior year. So for current seniors, the application is already live and you have until June 30th to apply, but you should never ever wait till June 30th. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Students who are doing the 2021-2022 application will need to use income tax information from 2019. So you should gather your information if you're a student, or parents should collect that information for 2019. The state priority deadline is January 15th, 2021. It's always January 15th. So for if you're a senior, January 15th, 2021 is your state priority deadline. Financial aid is offered on a first come, first serve basis. So it's really important that you do not wait past the priority deadline if at all possible, and that you fill it out even way before then. So it's already available. The sooner you fill it out, the sooner you get put into the processing line to receive financial aid. Some universities will run out of certain types of aid, and so the earlier you apply, the better chances you have of getting your maximum financial aid package. So to fill out your application, if you're doing a FAFSA, you'll go to the federal website, which is fafsa.gov, and you'll fill out the whole application online. If you fill out a TASFA, then you'll need to go to collegeforalltexans.com, print out the application, fill out an application for every school you plan to attend, and either mail it or send it in person to those schools to the financial aid office. Because of coronavirus, many schools are working remotely. So just make sure that if you're planning to take an application to the school, make sure to verify that their offices are open and that they're accepting visitors. If not, you may have to mail it, or they may allow you to send it electronically by email. That varies by college. When you do your FAFSA or your test application, always make sure that the details are correct. Make sure that there are no errors. If you mess up your social security number, you mess up your name, you mess up your income, you mess up any kind of information, it can cause serious delays later, and it can cause your processing to be delayed. So just make sure that you put in all the information accurately on the front end, and that'll make the process so much easier. Once you've submitted your application, the university or colleges that you send the data to will begin to communicate to you. So they'll let you know if you need to send information for verification. They'll let you know if you have other documents you need to send, like a CSS profile, for example. Some colleges require additional information on a form called a CSS profile. They may ask you for to fill out maybe some documents that explain situations with your incomes. They will keep in touch with you about what information you need to provide to them. And whenever your financial aid package is ready, they will send you a notice to let you know your financial aid award is complete. And here's the types of aid you're getting and how much aid you're getting for the next academic year. So keep an eye out for information from the colleges and universities that you are applying to see what your next steps are. One thing to remember is that there are situations where families have special circumstances. In particular, because of the economy right now due to coronavirus, it's possible that your family's income or your family's economic situation has changed from when you did your 2019 income taxes. If that's the case, if someone's now on disability or has lost their job or your income has decreased significantly, contact the financial aid office to request a special circumstances form. They will tell you what that process is. Usually it's a form, but sometimes they'll just ask you to write a letter and attach documentation. Every school has a little bit different process. But find out what that process is so that you can let the financial aid office know that your situation has changed and it's possible you may be eligible for additional types of aid. We know when we work with data that's 2 years old, it's possible that there are things that have changed. Students sometimes will ask me questions about whose parent information they should include. So, if a student lives in a situation where they live with someone other than their biological parent, or if their parents are separated, divorced, or there's some other family living situation, here's a helpful graphic to help you walk through which parent's information you should include. The very oversimplified version is that students, if they live with divorced or separated parents, should report the information of the parent whom they live the most during the last year. But there are a variety of situations, of family situations. So you can use this graphic to help you figure out whose parental information you should report. Also, take note that if you live with widowed step parents, grandparents, foster parents, legal guardians, or a brother and sister, that information should not be included on your FAFSA. Those are not data that should be included unless they have legally adopted you. Um, don't ever hesitate to contact the financial aid office or contact the Department of Education if you want to walk through this and you have more questions. We'd rather get it right on the front end than have you include information that's incorrect and then have to make changes later. So a lot of times I get the question, how much federal aid can I get? And that really just depends on every family situation. So, what I tell families is you will complete your financial aid application and submit it. The Department of Education will determine an expected family contribution using the data that you provided. The university or college will calculate a cost of attendance. So we will figure out how much does it cost to go 1 year to our school for a student who's living on campus or who's living with their parents or who's living off campus on their own. These two numbers, the EFC, expected family contribution, and the cost of attendance, COA, are what we use to calculate the amount of financial aid a student is eligible for. So here's the formula. We will use the cost of attendance minus the expected family contribution, and that will give us your financial need. The financial need is how much financial aid you'll be awarded and through a combination of different programs. So a quick example, if the cost of attendance for the school you want to go to is $10,000 and using your financial aid application data, we calculate that your estimated family contribution is $1,000, then your financial need is $9,000. 10,000 minus 1,000 will be 9,000. You will then get a financial aid package that adds up to $9,000. That may be a combination of grants, loans, work study, and scholarships. So that's basically how your financial aid package is calculated. The EFC is per family and doesn't change depending on what school you apply to. The cost of attendance does vary depending on the colleges you go to. Community colleges, state universities, and private universities will all have different costs of attendance. And so that's where it matters within this formula. All right, so let's talk a little bit about scholarships. To Up to this point, we've talked about aid programs that are things like grants, loans, and work study. But now I want to talk a little bit about scholarships because the process of applying for those and finding those is a little bit different. So to find scholarships, students should look for information about these with the universities or colleges that they're applying to. They may also want to find them through private foundations and organizations. They may also want to look at businesses and industry for information about scholarship opportunities. Each scholarship has its own application and its own application requirements. So if students do research and find 20 scholarships, they may have 20 scholarship applications and 20 sets of requirements. So students have to invest a little bit of time and energy to find these opportunities. To apply for scholarships, students will typically do this between October and March of their senior year. Deadlines for scholarships typically fall within this time frame. It's important that students follow all the directions very carefully and that they report the scholarship awards to their financial aid office. So if you receive a scholarship, it's important for you to let the financial aid office know that you have received a scholarship award. The other thing is that students should be really clear about what are the requirements for renewing a scholarship. Some scholarships are for one time only. Some scholarships are renewable, but they have to figure out what are the requirements to receive a renewal. Is there a GPA requirement? Do I have to take a certain number of hours? Do I have to stay in a certain major? Do I have to participate in a certain kind of success program? So it's really important on the front end before you accept a scholarship to know what are the terms and conditions of that scholarship that you need to fulfill in order to receive a renewal if it is a renewable scholarship. So hopefully this sort of introduction helps you learn more about the different types of aid programs that are out there and where you can apply for financial aid. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Here's my email and my phone number. You can also find our office information. We have a presence on social media on Facebook and on Instagram. Sometimes we'll share financial aid tips or scholarships or other information, so follow us on our social media if you'd like to stay informed about those opportunities. Um, Also, remember that you can contact the Department of Education for support. You can find information about them at the FAFSA.gov website, or you can call 1-800 for FED aid, FEDAID, to get help with financial aid questions that you may have. They have help in English and in Spanish available on on their website and on their phone line. I hope this information is helpful. Good luck with your journey for college, and thanks for tuning in.